go ahead and get started. So without further ado, going to pass it off to our host today, Copia's Director of Product Marketing, Jerry Abbey.
Thanks, Joe. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining today. This is part two in our webinar series, 7 Steps to Drive a Successful Industrial DevOps Adoption. Part one, if you missed it, was a webinar diving into the findings from our recently released State of Industrial DevOps report. And in this part, we're going to dig in a little deeper on how you can use that data, leverage it, and move forward in where you want to go with technology. So again, as Joe said, I'm Jerry Abbey, Director of Product Marketing here at Copia. Previously, I worked at Rockwell Automation, Plex Systems, Air Inc., another software provider, and a few other roles that can keep me professionally afloat forever, I think, because I don't think there will be a lack of plumbing, heating, teachers, all those things out there. But anyway, I always put that on for the perspective it gives when looking at data and thinking about putting together your strategy for moving forward. Because at the root of what we're going to be talking about today, it is understanding your story, why you need to put together a story for technology adoption, and how you can get people to engage with that story, understand it, and become your stakeholders for pushing it forward and getting buy-in. In addition to those experiences, I highlighted a few other things that I'll be talking about today. The recent reports I've worked on at Rockwell Automation, I ran the State of Smart Manufacturing report. So really digging into a wide swath of global market data for manufacturers covering the end users, OEMs, and SIs. And we had a similar audience for the State of Industrial DevOps. A couple other things on there. I'm a diehard Philadelphia fan, which sometimes comes up in my presentations, and a few other things, living in Rhode Island and living globally, has given me a little more perspective as I've dove into this data and tried to understand the different angles of organizations. All right, enough about me. Our agenda for today: we are going to dig into the context of today's conversation just to set the baseline for where we're going. We're going to look at why any of this matters right now. Understanding that why is the most important thing before you move forward, creating any type of plan. And then we're going to dig into these 7 steps to drive successful industrial DevOps adoption. We'll round out the conversation with some things moving forward to think about, and lastly, a Q&A. All right. So I just wanted to flash the 7 steps that we're going to be talking through today. We're going to be starting those steps with understanding what's next, where organizations are today, what percentage of organizations are moving forward, and how you can get your organization aligned and why you would want to. We'll talk through assembling decision makers. Once you have a diverse group of people together, looking at your organization, big picture. Are there bottlenecks within your organization? Applying the lens of the theory of constraints to understand what area within your automation is causing problems and how you can address that with your business case. Moving into building your business case. How do you do that if you've never done it before? If you have done it before, how do you make it successful as you move forward today? Digging into research, there's a ton of information out there, and we'll talk through how to find the information that you need that's valuable for your conversation. Then selecting the solution. Again, you're going to be tapping into some of those previous steps. Some of the stats from this report. It was a very high-level focused report with 42% of the 200 executive respondents being in a C-suite role. We had very large organizations. 58% of the respondents were coming from 1 billion in revenue or over. And you can see a selection of some of the industries covered here: high-tech, electronic, semiconductor, retail and distribution, automotive, We also had food and beverage, plastics and rubber, and many other, which you can see in the report. I have it highlighted here, and I'm just going to read through it as well. The definition for industrial DevOps, it is the application of lean, agile, and DevOps principles to the planning, development, manufacturing, deployment, and serviceability of significant cyber-physical systems. Some of the things that came out of the report, and again, just going through these for context, and I want to highlight preventable downtime, cyber secure practices, and competitive advantage. If you talk to anybody in manufacturing, distribution, anywhere in industrials, it would be great to prevent downtime. If you can't prevent all downtime, which is impossible, unplanned downtime, being able to prevent and minimize that, top of the list. It's going to increase your margins, improve efficiencies, improve everything within the organization if you can limit that downtime. Everybody that responded to the survey wants to prevent that, and the cost that came out of it, showing 67% saying it's 1 million an hour or more as a cost of downtime. That is significant, a huge impact to the business. Cybersecurity. We see more and more how much manufacturing, distribution, the industrials are being targeted by cybersecurity attackers, and how advanced they've become as AI tools become more readily accessible. Being able to institute cybersecure practices, especially as OT and IT lines continue to blur, it's a top priority. And one of those things that should be prioritized in your business case as you build it. And then competitive advantage. This is something that I'm constantly talking about at conferences, constantly engaging on when talking to customers, when going through case studies and seeing the impact of industrial DevOps on an organization. Increasing the visibility, the control, the ability to better manage operations, and also enhance the positioning of the workforce, the tools that the workforce is using. Your people love it. And that is one of those intangible advantages that can be difficult to quantify. So of the three that we're looking at here, competitive advantage, something that everybody grasps for, but sometimes has difficulty using as a lever to pull when trying to push forward. All right, so why does any of this matter right now? I'm going to show this timeline and talk through it quickly. We can see here DevOps from the time it was born to the time that Gartner, Forrester, and others were predicting and calling mainstream adoption. That was 7 years, roughly 7 years to maturity mass adoption, because of the extreme impact, positive impact that it brought to the software industry. Now, to the right side here, we're looking at industrial DevOps. Topia was founded in 2020 on the premise that industrial DevOps would bring similar advantages to industrials, and it was adapted for cyber-physical systems, understanding that unlike software, manufacturing and distribution organizations have a large operation in the physical realm, and fusing software with that takes a different approach and a different style to make that functional. And industrial DevOps delivers that. Started in 2020, we're moving towards our 5th year of it. And will it take 7 years for maturity and mass adoption? Will it take less? The speed of technology and growth and adoption right now is faster than it's ever been before. So as we talk through this, I just wanted to highlight that it's something top of mind, and we're going to be looking at the early adopters, how they've benefited, and who's going to be in those fast followers. One of the things that's so attractive about industrial DevOps right now is the way that it complements the workforce problem that everyone is seeing. There is a skills gap, a labor shortage. There are problems retaining people. There are 10,000 baby boomers retiring per month. There are endless things that could be said about the workforce today. And one of the things that industrial DevOps brings to your workforce issues, regardless of what they may be today, is that it focuses on people and enhancing the impact of those people. And it focuses on looking at your processes and understanding, like Deming said 70 plus years ago, you can't automate anything without process, and you can't deliver quality without a good process and automation and understanding of how you're operating. So looking at process and finding those ways to refine your approach, and then moving into automation and automating things that make sense. And then step 3 in this cycle, looking for ways to continuously improve. All 3 of these pieces are human-centered with those people in the middle to make technology work for you, make the processes optimized in the best possible way, and to be constantly looking to refine the way that your workforce engages with technology and create that symphony of operations within your organization. I'm going to touch on this briefly. As you look to adopt any technology, as you look to industrial DevOps, thinking about how it fits into your operations and creating an architecture or a mapping is vitally important as you bring that business case to stakeholders. And we'll talk through that more later, but I just want to highlight, building off that last slide, thinking about your technology and automation, your process and the platform that you're using, and then the people that are going to bring the action to all of this and how you're going to manage them and bring in change management and build a change culture. All right, moving into the meat of this conversation today, 7 steps to drive successful adoption. So I mentioned earlier that we see the first movers, and we asked within our survey to better understand what size of the market is moving forward. And we found that 10% said that they had no challenges moving forward with a DevOps-oriented industrial DevOps approach for industrial automation. Those early adopters are on the move. As an organization, we have seen them, partnered with them. They are our customers, and they are thinking in an innovative way for gaining that competitive advantage that we touched on earlier today. They are thinking about their cybersecure practices and seeing the benefits that industrial DevOps brings to their operations. And they have analyzed to death their numbers around downtime and thought about every possible way to reduce downtime, and especially to reduce unplanned downtime. In our survey, we found that 47% of unplanned downtime was driven by cybersecurity breaches. Right after that, hardware malfunction and software coding issues. We also found that 50% of all downtime was driven by industrial code. When you look at these numbers and think about this first step in understanding who is moving, why are they moving, and why you should be thinking about it as well, those are extremely powerful numbers to begin taking the first step forward. Think like a hyperscaler as you get your feet on the ground and start moving forward. And if you can't think just like them, please be aware of them in your industry. Here are some that are highlighted. Think like these organizations. You see them very thoughtfully planning for the future and looking at any competitive advantage they can find, being early adopters to new technologies and testing them, piloting them, doing a proof of concept with them, and then iterating from there to see how they can find benefits for their organization. While you might not be competing with these organizations, I put this up here as an example to think outside the box Think of organizations that may be tangential to yours and with a couple changes could move in and disrupt your industry, your operations. And always think about the other organizations within your industry that could disrupt. Moving into step 2, assembling the decision makers. There is tons of literature out there about creating the best team to move forward with adoption, to move forward with any complex project. And the way I look at technology adoption is that it is a complex project. You have so many different people vying for what is typically a limited budget, and there are capital expenditures laid out for the year. How do you get in and get your budget funded and approved? You do it by getting a diverse team so that when you start moving towards building the business case, you have stakeholders from across the organization and people, very importantly, people who are skeptics. Look for detractors and skeptics to build into this team and bring them research, talk to them, work together to find common ground of a problem. Ask them questions to see what pains they are feeling. Everyone in an organization knows who the skeptics and detractors are because they are typically some of the loudest people in the room, and they can be the demise of a project you're trying to move forward. If you bring them in on your team, hear them out, and then create a unified approach forward as you build the business plan, thinking about technology and how you can work together, that becomes a much stronger way forward. One other thing I want to highlight from the data that we got here, on the right side, you can see the decision makers for OT and related investment. As you would expect, information technology right there at the top, vetting, understanding, being the experts in technology that's coming in, and the technology buying process. C-suite right there at the top, security, cybersecurity, we've seen a rise in that, operational technology. All the way down there at the bottom, you can see 5% individual contributor. When I go back to thinking about the team that you're assembling and change management and getting that continuous flow, remember that people are at the center of any process that you're trying to implement, any change that you're bringing. They are going to be the ones powering that technology forward. If you bring them into the conversation, I'm not saying make them the final decision maker, but an influencer, a contributor, someone that you can make feel heard as you build this process, that can make a world of difference after you have moved forward and selected the technology, because they can be that champion and advocate, helping to teach other people and create a rallying cry to move forward and get the best out of that investment. Your team should be diverse and it might be dispersed, but think about ways that you can unify and bring it together. In a lot of ways, technology adoption can be like this picture, where you are jumping out of an airplane and, like the old saying goes, building it on the way down. Assembling that team and creating that unification as you move forward, all being on the same page of accepting that you don't know how each and every step is going to go, but you're going to operate as a team to work together and build that way forward, makes all the world of difference. Moving forward. So I earlier mentioned the theory of constraints as you build your business case, identifying that constraint. Eli Goldratt wrote an amazing book that talks through this. You can use this scan code on the side if you want to go and take a look at it. But he talks through real life examples of how in a factory, robots were brought in to speed up processes, but they were operating for 15, 20, 30% of the time because there were constraints limiting their ability to produce. Think about where automation exists on your floor, look at how it is moving, if it is producing at the level that you want, and do a deeper analysis around that before you move forward. Because if you can find an optimal spot to introduce industrial DevOps and help resolve some constraints that are causing problems, some manual systems that are taking up too much of people's time, that can be a great place to start and show immediate impact, which is one of the biggest things with any technology adoption and business case to move you forward. When you're building the business case, again, take that into account and get your team together and think about what is the return that you're hoping to get. Try and calculate what amount of time is taking today with backing up your industrial code as people go from device to device with a laptop, with the USB stick, and are manually doing it. Also, factoring in here is thinking about the risk. Oftentimes, people view the risk of change versus the risk of staying the same. And I see time and time again over the years that people like the way things have been done. It's comfortable. To this point, many times it's been successful, and people don't want to change, even if they think there could be a benefit there. But try and calculate how much time is saved and look at the benefits to your workforce, because people aren't manually going around and doing that. They're able to do more analysis and add more value to the business. They're able to up level the tasks that they're working on. We had one case study that we did last week talking to the CTO, and he was talking about how we could bring in interns and allow them to have way more access to code and do more coding, because with an industrial DevOps platform, he had control over that code before it was deployed. He had the opportunity to review it, to write inline comments, and work with that intern to help them get up to speed. When you think about your workforce and all the issues, the turnover with workforce over time, that ability to get people on board, trained, and build trust is invaluable. But looking at it deeper, if you track your hours, you can absolutely quantify and put that into your case for how you can save money, save time, save hours, and up level while you're onboarding people 10 times faster. Also, as you're moving forward towards building the business case, some people get held up on, how do I do it? How do I present it? What form do I need? There's so many ways to move yourself forward quickly. If you just type in business case template, there are literally, what I got in Bing, 1.2 million results here. If you go to ChatGPT or Gemini, you can type in who you are. And here in this example, I just typed in, I'm a manager at an automotive plant. I'm having trouble keeping track of and updating our industrial code. Help me build a business case for adoption of industrial DevOps. In here, it creates the entire draft. I'm not saying to copy, paste, but it gives you that framework for getting started. And that's one of the best things about these generative AI systems. You can feed a little bit of data in, get a framework, and then you adapt that framework for your particular instance. And then you can bring in other people, all those stakeholders, your diverse team, and show them something of substance to show that you're serious. And they can react, and you can iterate together to create a strong business case that incorporates operations across your organization, shows pain points that you're all dealing with, and then what type of metrics around those pain points can be remedied and calculated for improvement, and paint that path forward. All right. Researching and selecting your solution. So once you've gotten here, you've done a lot of the groundwork. You have built that team. You're feeling confident and strong. You have a framework for understanding how you're going to address these needs and what you need. and now you're doing research. Again, you could use a generative AI system to get yourself going and just think about what solutions are out there that can match what I need. You can go to industry analyst sites, see what their research is saying. You can and should, I would highly recommend, talk to technology providers. Get feedback from them. They are out there ready to help you build the business case, and they understand the technology and are doing this on a daily basis, creating the business case for the solution. They know the benefits, and if you can lean on them to help you, they can be that advocate and partner to help you move forward. They can also help with the plan for designing and deploying your solution forward. Whether you want to go straight in for full adoption, or depending on your stakeholders, they need a proof of concept. So testing it in a lab, testing it in a running environment, but isolated to a part of your organization, and then building out to a pilot at 1 plant, 3 plants, 5 plants, and being able to iterate in that pilot stage across the plants, having people meet and convene for stand-ups, talk about best practices, and refining your approach as you go forward so that you, when you are ready to move to scale, you have a system in place and you have a team that's already been working in the system that can help train everyone and coach them and move that culture of change, that change management as you go forward. Some of the research I mentioned, you can see this one from Frost and Sullivan talking about industrial DevOps as the next phase of industrial automation. You can see influencers like Jeff Winter talking about industrial DevOps in LinkedIn, talking about the advantages, why it's important, and where it can fit into your operations. So lots of research like this for you to bring in as you're talking through these things. Then there's many reports and different things out there. This is one that I'd worked on in the past, so I'm pulling it in here from Rockwell's State of Smart Manufacturing report. And this shows a cycle for how to walk through that proof of concept, pilot, scale phase, identifying your greatest need, prioritizing, defining your architecture, depending where you are as an organization, small, medium enterprise, or how many plants. But it's important to understand how you're bringing IT and OT together, certainly getting them in the room and getting them to work together to define this architecture before you scale. Again, I wanted to pull this slide in again to show you have smart manufacturing over here on the left and the cyber and physical coming together, which industrial DevOps addresses, where DevOps had focused on software. In the middle here, you can see the process and platform of industrial DevOps driving collaboration and process improvement, also helping towards those cyber secure practices. And on the far right, thinking about change management over time as you go forward and becoming a culture of change so that people are constantly looking for ways to improve. There's one constant in technology, and that's that it will always change. And those organizations, some of the ones I highlighted earlier, have that culture of change because they know if they don't, they'll be irrelevant in 5 years or 10 years. And it's important, no matter who you are as an organization, to drill in that culture of change so you can constantly improve and tweak. And it also feeds so much into your workforce, giving them that autonomy and motivation to contribute, to refine, to help the way forward. And lastly, right off of that point, champion change and drive adoption. Continuous improvements are vital, understanding that your people are at the center of everything that you do and empowering them to review the process, to refine the automation, and to continuously improve as you go forward. And moving forward. So there's a few things I want to highlight and then we will move into Q&A. We have an executive chat coming up soon with Toby Varland of Varland Plating. This is a Copia customer who will talk about his experience with industrial DevOps, working with Copia, and a really great point, whether you're looking at moving forward with Copia or just thinking about technology in general. Toby can give you fantastic insights around the value of industrial DevOps, thinking about the organization it brings to your industrial code, thinking about the way that you can take manual tasks off your employees' hands by automating, by having visibility into what you're doing, by having more tracking and traceability of how code has changed, by automating your backups. It's great. Will bring a lot of wonderful points, and I hope you can join us on April 22nd. We also have a next phase of this series where we're going to be doing a 4-part fireside chat starting in September and going into October with a couple of the experts that we've worked with on the State of Industrial DevOps. Nathan Harvey of Google and the Dora Report, Dr. Suzette Johnson, Dr. Robin Yeaman of Industrial DevOps, Build Better Systems Faster, Jeff Winter, and Sebastian Trolli of Frost & Sullivan. In this 4-part series, we're going to be talking and hearing their unique perspective on industrial DevOps, trends in technology, and where they see things going. I mentioned this a couple times and just wanted to highlight it here. This is a wonderful book if you are thinking about industrial DevOps. If you don't have time, like me, I have 3 small children. I listen to audiobooks all the time. This is available in audio form, and you can listen to it while you are commuting, while you are cleaning up the dishes in the kitchen. But lots of great insights and deep research in how industrial DevOps works within the cyber physical systems to maximize your capabilities and amplify your business for the future. And lastly, I want to highlight part 3 of this State of Industrial DevOps webinar series, where Copia is going to be partnering with Clarity, and we're going to be looking at the convergence of cybersecurity and industrial DevOps and talking through how you can safeguard the future of industrial operations. So thank you very much for joining today. Thank you for your time. And once again, I'm Jerry Abbey. I hope that you'll download the State of Industrial DevOps report, and please reach out if you do read through it and have any questions. You can visit Copia to learn more about industrial DevOps, and we'll move into Q&A. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jerry. If you do have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and then I will ask Jerry. Have a couple questions to get started with. First and foremost, what are some common challenges organizations face when trying to adopt industrial DevOps, and how can they overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenges is just understanding the impact for the organization and being able to track and build the metrics in advance, taking a look at how you're doing things today. And as we've seen talking to buyers, oftentimes it's very manual heavy of someone going from technology to technology with their laptop to back up or deploy new code with a USB stick. And we've heard horror stories of those laptops breaking down, those USB sticks getting lost. It is really just setting that baseline so that you have a tangible place to build that case from. And looking at case studies that are out there, looking at research that's out there, pulling that in to show and talk through this other company was able to get this type of impact. If you look at our operations, it is similar. And when you look at what each programmer is doing each day, and you plug in an industrial DevOps platform, how many hours can be saved? And with those saved hours, where can that person better spend time to instill cybersecure practices, looking at the IT and OT convergence to eliminate unplanned downtime, being able to go around the operations floor and think about where have we had the most unplanned downtime and what we can do to address that. You empower people to have this ability to analyze and fix many of the pains that exist on a day-to-day basis.
Fascinating. On to the next one. How can we measure the success of industrial DevOps implementation? What are some key metrics to track?
Thanks, Joe. Good question. So a lot of the things talked through, I think looking at where people are spending time, that example of an intern from one of our customers being able to do more with code because of the oversight that's instilled with the industrial DevOps platform. How much more can all of your employees do? How much more control and visibility? What can it do for your business? So I think looking at the way you operate today and thinking about what are the biggest pains to then move forward. But those are some and other metrics that I talked through earlier today, ways to find benefit and really grow your organization with your competitive advantage, and think about, as technology continues to evolve, just having the right technology in place for your organization to scale.
Makes sense. All right. Last one for the day. What advice would you give a company that is just starting its industrial DevOps journey? What are the first steps to take?
Sure. So in the beginning, I think looking at your size of operation. So really looking in the mirror, understanding small, mid-size, enterprise, and thinking about your greatest needs. And if you are a small business, your greatest need is probably immediate impact on workforce. Being able to fill roles, being able to keep things running, being able to maintain the margins or grow the margins that you have, and to deliver a competitive advantage. And prioritizing your investment in ways that are going to feed into that. If you are an enterprise, you might be purchasing other organizations and bringing them into the fold. We see a lot of that, and having an industrial DevOps platform that can be omni-vendor. So if you're just thinking specifically about your PLC coding, and you might be a Rockwell or a Siemens or a Snyder House, but you've purchased an organization that has the opposite. So you're Rockwell, you purchase Siemens, having a platform that can pull in the code from those different PLCs into one place, and then allow your teams across plants to instill best practices and systematize. One, that's going to make your purchase that much more valuable if you're thinking of it from that composite value and improving the organization. And two, it's going to make your people and workforce able to collaborate together and move forward in a more seamless way. So there's endless things to think about, but those are some of the ones I would think about as you're just getting started.
Great. That's very helpful. I think that's all we have for as far as questions go.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, Joe, for the questions.
Thanks all. Bye.